Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to give you a bit of an update on the Mustang and take you through the paint and body work I did. I painted this car in my backyard. In total it cost me about $1,500 for the paint and all the sandpaper and such. I had my own compressor and guns, so that's another cost you may want to think about if you're doing this yourself. Now keep in mind, this is a backyard paint job. I mean, I would say after it's wet sanded and done, it's like a 7.5 out of 10 type of thing. But this is for the type of person who, wants to spend $1,500 and not 15 grand on a paint job. So it's going to look better than a lot of the stuff out there, but keep in mind, it's not going to be perfect. I skipped a lot of steps here because I wanted to get this car done. It took me about 2 months or so to paint it, just kind of tinkering away after work. So yeah, this video isn't meant to be on how to do a really nice, really professional paint job. This is for a backyard DIY guy who's trying to build a car on a budget. So here we go. Alright, so the prep work here really is the most important part of the whole thing. On a high-end car, the car may be, stripped down to bare metal. I didn't do that in this one. Most of the car was pretty much just all faded out. So all the faded sections, I used 220 grit sandpaper to prep it for primer. There's a little bit of Bondo work I had to do in some spots. Big thing here, if you don't have a big air compressor, I used like an M18 palm sander. I thought I might have to buy a big compressor for this one, but I got away with it. So in spots where the clear coat is peeling, these are kind of the dangerous spots where you really should go down to bare metal and epoxy prime. So that's what I did for the spots that were peeling. So here's an example. The roof on this thing was super bad, so I stripped it all the way down, and I actually had to skim coat it with filler. So I stripped it down with like 80 grit sandpaper, which you got to be a little careful doing, generates a lot of heat. But then, yeah, I blocked all the roof again with a piece of 80 grit sandpaper on a kind of a big flat block, and that gets you the car really straight. So in general, anywhere you're using filler, you should use something shaped like the panel with 80 grit sandpaper. So obviously a flat block could be a round block, and that's what you want to do to get the car really straight. And the more time you spend doing this, the straighter the car will be. And you can use guide coat there to assist you with finding highs and lows. So in this one, I opted to remove a bunch of the panels, just kind of for ease of painting the car. So when you use a small compressor like I've got, you're really limited with how much of the car you can paint at once. So that's why I took a lot of these panels off, because I wouldn't have enough air supply to paint them all on the car. Plus, it makes it a lot easier to strip some of the panels down and get all the jams in the areas in behind. So once the whole car is at about a 220 grit finish, all the bodywork's done, it's time to poly up and spray. So I just kind of polyed my shop all together here. Didn't do anything too special. Alright, so for my spray setup, I used a Delfleet starting line gun with a 1.8 tip, about 25 psi with the trigger pulled through a single 20 gallon 120 volt compressor. I sprayed 3 coats of PPG Shopline Servicer on it, and then I went straight to blocking with 400 grit wet. The reason I did this was because I was pretty confident with how straight the car was. This is kind of cheating. A lot of people might start at 320, but again, I kind of wanted to just get this one done. Now, I used a dry guide coat when I was doing this, and that helps you identify highs and lows. So I won't go into all the details of block sanding. You could spend hours talking about it. So again, on this one, I skipped a lot of steps. A high-end build, you might use a different type of surfacer. You might use higher quality products and more of them, and probably start coarser. So the coarser you start, the more your car will be shaped like the block. So if you want it really flat, you use coarse sandpaper and you use a big block, and then you kind of progressively work your way through the grits to get the car super straight. Pretty much as you go, there's no real rocket science to this. When you spray guide coat, the car will show you where it's high and it will show you where it's low. So the spots that obviously go down to bare metal right away, those are high spots, little high spots, and the spots where you'll see black circles stay, those are low spots and little dents. Alright, so on this car, I ended up using a single stage paint. Normally I'd prefer base clear. The reason I did single stage here is I was spraying it in my garage, and every layer of paint that you put on a car, paint or clear, just gives you more opportunity for dust. So I knew the shop would be really clean once, and that's kind of why I decided to single stage. So I used a 3M PPS system here, and the reason I used this is it kind of lets you spray upside down. It's really easy to clean, and you can actually temporarily store paint with it. It comes with caps for these things, so it's a really nice system. The gun I was using here is an Iwata LPH 400. It's a low volume, low pressure gun, and it worked really nicely. So I started here by spraying all the door jambs and the underside of the panels. And then after the paint cures, I go and wet sand any overspray that got onto the car, like for example, stuff that got onto the quarter panel from the door jamb. Then I go ahead and I reassemble the car. Now, in this one, I ended up painting the shell with the doors and the trunk on it. Then I painted the fenders by themselves. And then I painted the front bumper and hood together. And this is one of the main reasons why I used white. It's kind of the easiest color to do this with, and all the panels still end up looking the same. If you wanted to use like a metallic paint or something, you have to paint the whole car together. And for me, I didn't have the space or the compressor to do that. And that's kind of why I went this route. Really too, the front clip, you should probably spray all that stuff together. Again, I kind of ran the gauntlet on it with the white just to see what would happen. And yeah, it actually ended up turning out really good. So here are a few clips of the car all painted. There's been a little bit of wet sanding and polishing that have happened in these photos, but the next steps here are really to go through the full wet sanding and polishing sequence. So that starts at 1500 grit, and then you go to 2000, 3000, and then you do like a 3-stage polish on it after. I use the 3M Perfected system. I may upload a video on the wet sanding and polishing. But yeah, here she is now. So we're going to go on to some mechanical work next. As always, let me know if you have any questions or comments down below, and thanks for watching. See you next time.